Hi everyone, welcome to another Hatton's Model Railway Skillscast session. And today we're looking at signals. This is part 3 of our UK railway signalling video. This one's a little bit more advanced than the other 2 sessions, I won't lie to you. So if you've not watched them already, I would recommend watching part 1, which covers semaphore signalling, and part 2, which covers the basics of colour light signalling. This builds on both of those sessions and teaches you a little bit more about some of the unusual signals that you can see in the UK and their purposes too. And of course, the models that we have available to put on your layout right now. So if you do have any questions in particular, please do put them in the chat. But again, if you're joining us for this video for the first time, I would recommend watching parts 1 and 2, which are available on our YouTube and Facebook pages. But without any further ado, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering today. And this fantastic shot shows a lot of the signals that we are looking at here today. We've got different types. We have subsidiary signals. So these are different to standard signals that we have, mainly permitting shunting and non-regular moves across the network. And there's quite a few different types. You can see some in the distance there. And also coming up to the front, we have the banner repeater signal, which we'll be looking at. We'll also be talking about theatre boxes, SPAD indicators, and a few more different things there too. So if you do have any questions, please do put them in the chat and I'll answer as many as I can throughout the stream. So these are the signals that a lot of you will have seen across the UK network. They look a little bit different to the standard semaphores and the colour lights that are out there, but they still serve just as an important purpose. First of all, we'll start by looking at the banner repeater signal. So again, this is the signal right on the left of this photo here. Looks a little bit like a semaphore, but with a separate lighting system. The one with B6R underneath it is the signal we're looking at. And this is, as you can imagine by the name, this repeats what the signal in front is showing. So this is a great signal to put if you've got a tight curve or if you've got a station with a signal beyond it that you can't see from when you are in the station itself. These would be used to relay the signal and show the driver when you can't actually see the signal from where you are. So very commonly used in stations, these signals, and other parts of the railway too. There's 3 positions that these signals can show, as we see here on the screen. On the left, we have our horizontal line. Those of you who've watched our semaphore videos will recognize that a horizontal line or a signal showing a horizontal aspect will mean stop, or yeah, stop. So that is exactly as it shows here, sorry. And then the one in the middle shows proceed, with the signal going down as if it were a lower quadrant semaphore signal. On the right, you don't see this one so often, but it is out there. The signal will actually gain a fully green back to it and show that the next signal is showing green. Not only proceed, which could be a distant or a green signal that we're used to out there, but this being green shows that the next signal is fully green. So you can see these across the UK network, and you can still see them today. These haven't really changed design in the last 100 years or so. It will be this design. Some of them have modern LED lighting, as we see here. But if you're looking for these on a steam era layout and you're looking for something on a more classic working, you can pick up banner repeater signals, static versions such as this, which are great to put in either a station or on part of the line where your signals can't be seen. So maybe if you have a tight curve coming up to a tunnel or similar. If you're not quite sure where to put these, have a look at the layout, get low down and look through the driver's eyes. If you're coming around a corner quite fast, or if you're in a station and you can't see the signal from down the train, it's time for a banner repeater to put in there. So have a look at the options there. Again, study some real life photos and see where they are in real life. You may see one at your local station or stretch of railway too. So let's head on to subsidiary signals. These are the smaller signals that you can see all across the UK, sometimes on the main lines, but maybe in some yards too. These are what are known as shunt signals, ground signals, all different names, but they serve the same purpose, which is for shunting. So a lot of these are permissive working. So you can pass this signal, but bear in mind your surroundings as you are shunting. Proceed at a slow speed where you're able to stop very easily. And of course, if you're in a yard, do bear in mind any other obstructions that may be in the area too. So having a look at some different types that we have of these, the first one that we're looking at today is known as the calling on signal. This is underneath our main semaphore signal that we see there. You'll see these a lot in stations, especially coming into stations, and more so in the steam era. These would permit you to run into the station if a train was already in the platform. So if you think of a large station with a train already in there and you are swapping the locomotive, this would give you the permission to proceed into that section, but also advise you that there is already a train there. So if the train was arriving and there was nothing in the platform already, you would have the signal above, the full semaphore signal showing clear. If that train is pulled in and we're putting another locomotive on the back, maybe to shunt some of the carriages or to exchange the locomotive on the other end, you would have the calling on signal showing clear, either by showing the upper or lower quadrant, dependent on where it was. And then that would say you can proceed. However, there is already a train in the next section of track. Bear in mind that that is there, essentially. It's most likely that the driver would know that he was proceeding onto a train that was already present. But this calling on signal would call on the driver to make sure that he knew that the train and the obstruction was ahead in that section. So you can still see those out there today. They are in various different platforms, but with more railways becoming less hauled by locomotives now and locomotive swaps not really happening in stations anymore, they are fewer and further between. One place you may find them is at very large stations where services combine. So where you have multiple units coupling together for different parts of the journeys, trains will come into the section on the calling on signal and then hook up to the other train in the platform. So if you have any operations like that on your layout, they are the ways to look. Now, a couple of you already asking in the video there. Charles is asking in the chat regarding ground signals, and it's time to listen up, Charles, because that's what we'll be covering next. You can find ground signals as some of the calling on signals, but the main purpose for ground signals is for shunting in yards. Some yards do have them, some yards don't. It's mainly to protect the lines going back onto the main line, so you're rejoining the signalling system, and in busy yards out there too that do need to be fully controlled and operated. Some smaller yards would just operate on either a line of sight or a one locomotive in steam basis. So that means that once you are in the yard, there are no signals to follow. It's purely hand-operated points and no signals. This is mainly in smaller yards across the UK and smaller, less used freight yards. Certainly less of a common occurrence now, but if it was a sleepy goods yard on a branch line, you would find that you would maybe have a signal protecting the yard itself coming in and out of it. But once you're in that yard, the yard was yours, as long as you were aware of any of the potential obstructions that were in the yard itself. With the larger yards, though, these shunt signals did come in, and other opportunities are for movements that aren't usually permitted by normal trains. So we can see here, this is signal box in the northwest of England. And this is a facing crossover, so changing between the two main lines on the left. And this is controlled by two shunt signals. You can see one here right in the center of our screen and one just at the other end of the points there. You can just about make it out. And this would be a signal for if the train was changing tracks. This would not be a usual maneuver, so you've not got a full signal here to control this. But again, the shunt signal indicates that you can proceed past it when it shows clear, but do use your caution when you are changing the tracks in this instance. All the styles, as you see here, were like the semaphores. So we've got our horizontal line again that a lot of you are familiar with by now. And then these would change to show an upper or lower quadrant. You can see one here attached to a main semaphore signal in Worcester Station. So you can still see these out there today, but the semaphore type is really few and far between to see out there. And we are seeing more of this type that we see here now. So let's have a look at what the actual different types mean and what they show on their workings. So we have our on and off again. For those of you who like the terminology, we've got stop and go. So there's two different styles there for two different eras showing what they do show. So pre-1996, so from the 1950s onwards, an on or stop signal would have been a red and a white light, as we can see. Now it's just two red lights, and off is the two white lights that we see on this particular signal here. So this is just a standard permissive ground signal that we can see. So you can pass this again, just to reiterate, you can pass it when it is off or showing clear, but you do need to use your caution, as these are purely for shunting only. Slightly different style of signal that we have here. When my picture loads, which I don't think it is doing, unfortunately, but we do have shunt ahead signals too, which will show a yellow aspect rather than the red aspect on the signal. So again, that's for a signal that can't really be cleared, so there's nothing in there to actually clear. These are really uncommon to see out there. They're mainly for things like head shunts in yards and other areas too, but the main type of ground signal that we will see, or the permissive signal, is the signal styles that we see here. The final style that you can see is what's called a limit of shunt. In steam days and the steam era, so right up to the 1950s, 1960s, this would have mainly been a sign that had limit of shunt written on it, but this is the equivalent of a stop signal. This is permanently red, as you can see here, and this then says that you cannot pass this signal. In a yard, this can be used where you may have a risk ahead on the track, maybe a crossing that can't be changed, or something that you are not allowed to go past under pretty much any circumstance if you are performing shunting maneuvers. So the limit of shunt is there to confirm that if you are shunting a train in your yard, you've got to stay in the boundaries of that limit of shunt. It is the limit where you can shunt, essentially. So these names really do work out once you start thinking about the meanings behind them. So having a look at the actual models of the permissive signals, the ground signals, etc. that we do have, DCC Concepts brings out a great range of double O gauge signals of the various different types. We have the Freeway colour signals that you see here, and these represent the style seen from the 1950s onwards, as seen on our screen right now. These are fully working, fully controllable, either on analog or digital, and you can get the more modern 4-light versions available there too. So if you are signalling up your yard, have a look at these signals. They're a great way to add some different colours onto your layout. As regards the older style signals, as one of you's mentioned in the chats, these are sometimes known as Dolly Discs or various other different names that are used on the network. There isn't really a working model of these available at the moment, but you can buy various static ones from Ratio and Will's kits. So if you do want to put them in the yard and you're happy about them not working, you can buy ones that sit alongside the track, as you saw in the photo there. So let's take a look at a couple of last little bits and pieces just to round up some of the others that you may have seen out there on the tracks. The first one I'm thinking of is the SPAD indicator. Now, these are sometimes attached to lights themselves, or indeed you can find them on different parts of the network. I'll just get you a photo up now so you can see one of these. This looks very similar to a standard signal, but this will actually be after your normal signal along the line. So whether it's a colour light or whether it's a semaphore signal, SPAD means signal passed at danger. So you have gone through a red signal, which is a major issue, really, especially as you can see here, if you're heading onto a single line section such as this. So this acts as a secondary warning system after the signal, and this will only come on if you have passed the previous signal at danger. So it really is an emergency alert system that you can see here. This, dependent on the style of signal, will either flash red or show a constant red signal too. But these are really important signals, especially on parts of the line like this. You don't really see them that often in other places, but where it is imperative that passing a signal at danger may cause a major accident. I mean, passing any signal at danger is a bit of an issue, really, but these are mainly in the places where you really need to let the driver know crystal clear that he has passed that signal at danger. So either on busy lines, high-speed lines, or where railways go from double track to single track sections, as we saw there. Finally, one last little item I will show you is the station off indicator. These are sometimes known as theatre boxes, and these are just as much for station staff as they are for the drivers of the trains too. You'll often see these on stations, especially those of you on more busy stations, and I can guarantee you, if you head to a major station, keep an eye out for one of these, as you will see one on the station. I can guarantee that for you. These indicate that the signal to depart the station or the signal ahead is clear. Rather than showing a signal or a signal aspect, it says the word off, so we know the signal is off or clear and the train can proceed. It's a really simple way to let station staff know that a train is ready to leave, so they can carry on their duties of closing the doors and making sure the passengers are on the trains. Again, really useful on a curved platform where you may not see the signal at the far end of the track, but it's a great indicator to let you know that that train is ready to depart. So that's a couple of the different styles of signals that you have there. I'll just answer a couple of quick questions from the chat. And Chelmswood, it really depends on your location. 99% of the signals out there by this time would be the free light, colour light signal that you can see here on the screen. Some of the signals out there would still be the smaller shunt discs, as we can see here, or the disc semaphore signals on the screen, but these will be becoming fewer and further between. So my recommendation would be, if you're doing anything up towards the end of the steam era, you can use the shunt discs. If you're heading into the BR era, so late 1950s up until the early 2000s or so, use the free aspect signals. If you're heading right up to the modern day, you can use the 4 aspect signals, and all of those are available right now. So I hope that helps. So we've covered some of the different types of signals today. Again, if you've not watched them already, I would really recommend watching parts 1 and parts 2 of our signaling video to give you an idea of some of the basics that you can see there with signals on the UK railways. You'll see them at stations, you'll see them in yards, you'll see them all across. And I hope in this 3-part series, I've given you a bit more of an indication as to what all these different signals that you can see for a bit of a look. So do have a look out there. We may cover some further aspects in there, such as different train signalling systems, including in-cab signals, train protection warning system, and others too. If you'd like to see that, please let us know in the comments, or if you'd like to see any other SkillsCast session or a real railway profile, we're always open to ideas. Every single product that I've shown here today is available right now from hattons.co.uk. So click that link in the description. I've got the full information there for you on all the signals we do, whether they are N gauge, double O gauge, or O gauge, ground signals, semaphores, colour lights, the lot. We have them working, non-working, all different methods, and you can have a look at them too. If you've got any further questions at all, please put them in the chat or the comments if you're watching this video a little later on, or do feel free to get in touch with our customer experience team, who are always more than happy to help you with any queries you have. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed today's SkillsCast session. Don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel and Facebook pages for more videos like this and all the latest model railway news too. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.